So, straight away, I apologise for coming at you from a strange hotel room, but I actually worked Evil Uno's Mystery Wrestling last night. You should absolutely check that out. Some of the most fun I've ever had in my wrestling career. But when I was driving to the venue, it did come out that R-Truth had been released. And when I woke up today, and last night really, I just wanted to make a video about it, because if you watch any of my content, be it here or What Culture Wrestling, please subscribe to both of those. You know that R-Truth is one of my favourite wrestlers, I would say, ever. I'd have to think down and think about that as well. Before I forget too, I only just found out this morning, because I wasn't on the internet yesterday, that Carlito also got released. So I want to address this from two different ways, because the first, and what's important to me, is my fandom, right? I don't care about anything else. I care about how I feel when I watch professional wrestling. And even during some dark days of WWE, when it wasn't very fun and there were some very strange things going on, you could always rely on R-Truth to turn up and just make you feel warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum, make you laugh, and just make you a little bit aware, or remind you, I should say, that wrestling is fun, wrestling can be great. I mean, the 24/7 title stuff was hit and miss. It would have been an abomination without that man. He was genuinely hilarious, he was genuinely funny. Again, he never took himself too seriously. Some of the skits and some of the bits he were in, I mean, what was the last thing he did now, if he doesn't ever come back to WWE? The last thing he ever did was speaking to invisible people and then thinking that JC Mateo was Solo Sikoa's son. There's nothing good about the R-Truth release, but that is just a small thing that I'll keep with me and remind me that guy was the best. Now, as soon as you say this, and I happen to tweet it out on my social media, cheap plug at Simon316, please give me a follow. It's good for my ego and my self-doubt. But as soon as you put that out, people, there are a number of things that you get. I'm not saying you're not allowed your opinion, I just think some of these are disingenuous, and certainly not how I see fandom as a professional wrestler, to tie these two things in together. But first of all, they say he's 53 years old. I don't care how old R-Truth is. I don't sit down to watch wrestling and go, well, I can't enjoy that person because they're over a certain age. I like R-Truth because he's funny and he's entertaining and he puts a smile on my face. And, you know, it makes me want to continue to watch wrestling because he gives me that instant response of, oh, R-Truth, he's such a giggle. I'm going to watch this again. So I don't care if he's 72. If he's on my television screen, and when I'm giving WWE or any wrestling promotion my entertainment hours, if you achieve that by entertaining me, totally irrelevant. The other one is, well, he's 53 years old, he'll be on a lot of money, blah, blah. I don't care about the finances of WWE or AEW or Ring of Honor or of Impact. I want everyone to do well, and I want revenues and profits to go up so they can support the wrestlers and these companies can be around forever, because I think the lay of the land and the competition, the scene is way better when you do have multiple companies. I don't have to worry about budgets or transfers. It almost ties in, well, I say transfers, almost ties into football when people go, we can't spend that much money. What are we talking about? A little bit different in football because it's totally broken and players being paid way too much. But I also don't have to worry about that as a sports fan, right? And I'm sure it's the same in other franchises and other sports that you watch as well. But also, I would never be so awful as to say that a man who was given, 30 years, if probably not more, to professional wrestling is probably totally beat up, had that horrendous injury last year too. I don't want him to lose a paycheck. I don't want him to lose a single cent, a single dime, especially from a company that's making more money forever. I think that conversation becomes way more interesting if it's WWE in like 1996, when genuinely apparently they were struggling financially. Then you are walking on a tightrope. But Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful said that, he chatted to some wrestlers who were totally perplexed by this. And they were like, well, now nobody is safe. I don't think you want that feeling ever. That doesn't sound like a fun way to be. Again, I always try and remember the human side. And I always try and reduce being a WWE superstar down to a job. It's an amazing job. It's an dream job. But it's the same job. And I've worked in offices where you are walking on eggshells and walking a tightrope and worrying you're going to lose your position. And it's horrible. And it's certainly not good for morale. But even now we're getting bogged down in the wrong stuff. R-Truth was a man that made me laugh. And R-Truth was a man that I wanted to see on my television. And I knew this anyway, but when I saw that news, I think we all went through the same emotions. He's joking, he's having a laugh. Bit of an odd joke, it's not really that funny, because it would be awful if this did happen to him. And then it was quite quickly sort of confirmed, approved, whatever you want to say, by a lot of people. And the outpouring of love for R-Truth, and Carlito too. I know I'm focusing on R-Truth, but it was like, by the time I learned about Carlito, I'd already been through all these emotions, so that's what I processed, and that's what I wanted to talk about. But I feel very similar about Carlito, to a lesser extent, only because he was away from WWE so long, so he wasn't part of my vision for all of those years. Probably 2 decades when it comes to R-Truth. But you just saw the outpouring of love. I mean, there's so many names. I mean, Rhea Ripley, Naomi, Jade Cargill, Kevin Owens wrote a lovely message, Karrion Kross. There's a bunch of names. I forget them if I keep going. Baron Corbin, he wrote about it too. And, people will say, oh, Simon, you're such an idiot. This is just the way the world works. Okay, but I don't have to enjoy it. I don't have to like it. It doesn't mean I'm pointing the finger of blame at anyone. Like, people want to start talking about, WWE's becoming sort of like the UFC. I don't think there is truth in that because, who runs the UFC? It is TKO. I do think it's heartless, and I do think it's corporate, if that's the right term. But anytime I talk about that too, I feel like it's also important to note that is unfortunately the way the world works, and I don't like any of it. But I do think there is a bit of an asterisk when it comes to wrestling, because you can sort of circumvent the norms. And you can go against the usual general stuff of this person is so old, so now we have to move him on. No, we don't, because wrestling is the land of make-believe. Wrestling is the land of the predetermined. We can do whatever we want. Not to tie this into my thing that I did yesterday, but the reason I've always been a huge fan of mystery wrestling is they do serious stuff, but they do goofy wrestling. It is for life. And the reason I enjoy goofy wrestling for life so much is because it's always a nice reminder that it takes, let's say it's a normal singles match, right? There's two people, there's a referee, and there's a promoter, a booker, whatever you want to call them, and you can literally do whatever you want. There are no rules because it's a creative endeavor, and you can let your imaginations run wild. And I think R-Truth understood that. I always thought he did such a good job. And I understand his contract ended and they're not renewing it, which is different from releasing or firing. But I mean, we're still walking the same tightrope here, to use that phrase once again, for the 32nd time. But to see him have that match against John Cena only a couple of weeks ago and do that skit on SmackDown and be having matches and having the #1 selling shirt in the company, I just kind of think you can go, even if he did it like a 53-year-old, which he doesn't, by the way, he looks about 37, which is totally terrifying and crazy. But even if he did, if he's still ticking those boxes and he still has the connection with the fans, if I was running the company and I was making record profits and I had the money, I would certainly keep him on because it's that connection which makes wrestling so cool, right? It just does. And I'm sure he'll turn up in a TNA or an AEW or somewhere like that and it will be awesome. But I just find it mad that WWE would get rid of him to begin with because you can't get that sort of legacy, tenure, and experience without those three things. You can't buy it. You can only get it from just being around and doing good work. And I just have so many good memories of the man. The one that always sticks out is when he thought he was in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I think it was Kane that delivered a line. Of all people, corporate Kane, that said, you're not even in the match. I think that could have been the first My Bad by R-Truth too. The little Jimmy stuff was hilarious. And that's when R-Truth was a pretty, I wouldn't call him a serious heel, but he was to a certain extent. And there were occasions where he kind of felt like he was properly insane. And again, we talked about the 24/7 stuff and the most ridiculous things that he was doing. But there were so many little things that he did. And who doesn't? It did it on Friday, right? As I'm watching this, if you're watching this video on the day it goes live. On Friday, if you watch that Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and JC Mateo video, when Jacob Fatu has to cut his big arm, a badass promo, you can see his lip quivering because R-Truth broke him. Solo Sikoa has to play it so over the top because he broke him. Even JC Mateo, JC Cobb, whatever you want to call him, is JC Cobb, Jeff Cobb is kind of quivering. And we can always go back to that Brock Lesnar segment where he decided I'm going to take down the biggest of all the fish when it comes to someone not breaking on TV. Cracked up Brock Lesnar, cracked up Paul Heyman, and then even the Judgment Day stuff, which was, 18 months ago? Maybe I'm exaggerating because wrestling goes so fast, you kind of get lost in this stuff. But when, was it Rhea and Damian Priest held up the belts and he popped up in the middle with his, must have been his tag team title, and he got kicked out of the group and he didn't get kicked out of the group. The reason, and I'm not taking away from anybody else, because everyone in the Judgment Day did fine work, especially Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio when it was first getting off, and obviously Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest being the damn superstars of that thing. But I truly believe, and I think they'd agree, and I hate speaking of other people, but I kind of feel most of us would be on page with this, that without R-Truth, that group is still not going now. It's not in its third iteration. It was the secret sauce, the magic that all of a sudden made that fun because they were so serious and they were so intimidating. And again, you had Damien and Rhea who really used that to take a step up to the next level and become super duper whooper main eventers. But then R-Truth was always there, helped with Damien Priest's face turn. He could never keep a straight face, which just made you love him so much. It was so endearing. And you try to tell me there's no worth in that and he couldn't have done that again. I mean, you don't want to do a copy and paste job all of the time, but just figure out situations where you think he can benefit. And I just can't believe it, right? And all releases are bad. There's no like good or bad releases. I can't stand that either when someone gets released, well, they weren't doing anything. So what, man? Like, and again, I understand the churn. I understand where you've got to go because we're not doing this. We want to bring these people in. I understand there's balances and checks and all that stuff. But somebody like R-Truth, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that was my gut reaction when I did my post, whatever it was. I just do not get it. I don't know why he can be kept on. And I know what money he was being paid, but we can't offer him less money if you think he has to have less money and let him make the decision. I mean, that could have been the case, right? But it sounds to me like he wasn't offered a contract at all. And I suppose the reason it bothers me a little bit, although again, I understand this is where the corporate world works, it's very cold and dry, very cut and dry, I should say. There's no emotion attached to it, and wrestling is all about emotion. One of the reasons R-Truth is the most beloved person in the world is because of the way he makes you feel, right? Again, we're getting into cheesy and corny territory here. But it's the same with, which is very similar, the Sami Zayn and the Bloodline stuff. Some of the reason that was able to go so long and help Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns was because Sami Zayn was doing the same stuff. He was cracking them up and it made us crack up. Then we fall in love with these characters and we like them. We want to see more of them. What are we going to do this week? And the fact that R-Truth essentially did that for 20 years, and I'm being unfair to him here too, because even before he became the master of goofy wrestling for life, everything he was doing, he was super serious, man. He would cut a promo that made you go, I don't think this guy understands that wrestling is predetermined. He is so dialed in. And I even said on one of my predictions videos before Saturday night's main event, maybe he could even dip his toe back into that a little bit, which he did with that promo. It was still more silly, R-Truth, because I think he understands by this point. But maybe that's sort of the headline here as well. Talk about a guy that understood pro wrestling. He could have not wanted that slot. I'm sure he enjoyed it. But he could have been like, wait a minute, I was once like a super duper serious wrestler, and now you're trying to quote unquote drag me down to being a comedic wrestler. There is no dragging down. Comedy wrestling is real wrestling. Damn it, mystery wrestling will tell you that constantly. But he didn't. He understood constantly the job was to, again, make people laugh, entertain the fans, and just go out there and have a good time. I mean, he did the What's Up theme song for, it must have been 20 years, 15 years. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. People always knew what it was. It's not like one audience, a generation sort of moved on, another generation came in, and they didn't also relate to R-Truth. Everybody did, and everybody loved him, including the wrestlers, which is why there was such a big yell about yesterday. So I would truly miss him. And you can say something that is so ridiculous, it's so over the top, and I'm sure he'll land somewhere else, and I can enjoy him there. But I suppose as we get older, we can get really over the top now as we turn it into a TED Talk. But as we get older and people do move on, especially when it does feel a little bit unfair, and a little bit like, well, we didn't need to do that, it does hit you a bit harder because you realize that life is never going to stay the same. I mean, maybe there's not anymore, but there used to be a thing such as a WWE lifer. Maybe that doesn't exist. And of course, one day he's going to get a Legends deal. Of course, one day he's going to get brought into the Hall of Fame. But I don't think you need to hit fast forward. To me, that's like saying, well, you banged your knee, at least you didn't bang your head. So I still banged my knee. And of course, I want him to get all that stuff down the line. But I also didn't want him to get released from WWE. Both these statements can be true. I really don't care about his age. I really don't care how much he was being paid. I really don't care how much the company earns. The conversation changes, of course, if they're broke, but they're most definitely not broke. They're more successful than they ever have been. I suppose the ultimate worry is this just what we do now? And it's more like we look on a sheet, well, that person is 50 and that person earns this much, we must let them go. And I don't think it's totally fair to point the finger of blame at WWE because that's what a lot of companies do. But I would just prefer if WWE wasn't one of those companies. Maybe I'm living in La La Land, that's fair. Because again, professional wrestling is this magical, wonderful thing where age is almost irrelevant when you are in a character role like that. Like, if his knees weren't working anymore and he couldn't go and he was really struggling, that sort of changes things. But R-Truth has never shown anything like that. And even after a crazy injury, I think he had to have 2 surgeries. I think he had a staph infection. He was able to come back and you would never even know it. To me, you can ignore all the usual tropes and numbers and statistics and say, we'll just keep this guy on and we'll just allow him. And people say he wasn't used that much. He was all over my TV the last 2 years. And so he should have been. And he was selling merchandise. It doesn't happen by fluke. Once again, I keep using that word because I think it's so important. It's about that connection. So that's just how I feel about it. I'm very blessed and lucky to have this platform. He's not a guy that could have been released and I could have just made a video today going, oh man, this happened in wrestling. Because it's all I would want to be talking about. Because again, I'm a nerd, I'm a geek. But shout out to Carlito as well, who also fit wonderfully into that role. I suppose that one doesn't feel as shocking just because it's a very much a first one in, last one out. Is that what they say? I think that's the right saying. But it still sucks. And I still think, how are they going to explain him not being in the Judgment Day? That's what I don't get. The fact maybe he's got 2 weeks left actually before his contract ends. I don't know, man. I just don't like it. Even on a completely insane level. It's like there's no justification there. All right, that's not how feelings work. I just think it sucks. And I suppose it is going to continue. Why would anybody listen to me? I'm just a bald guy at the moment ranting in a Canadian hotel room. But yes, as a huge fan of R-Truth, it's just like one of your heroes, I suppose, going away. And now I know I'm not going to see him on Raw. I'm not going to see him on SmackDown. I'm not going to see him in a Raw Rumble. Always wanted him to come out of Raw Rumble and then be told you're not in this Raw Rumble. And it turned out he'd just play on his own interest music or something like that. I did see quite a fun fantasy booking that he could go to AEW and be like Edge, Christian, and all the other ex-WWE guys and think he's in WWE. I mean, I would love that, but I could also understand if you're a hardcore AEW fan why you wouldn't want it. But I still think R-Truth could be used there. TNA, I think Tommy Dreamer sent a message out saying, hit me up. So, and of course, he was like the original, well, one of the day with him and Ken Shamrock, right? It was sort of the original OG TNA World Champions, but it was still the TNA NWA heavyweight title. So maybe he does have one more serious run in him, which I'd be totally cool with, because if anybody's earned it, he's him. So there's a lot of gibberish there. You'll have to forgive. It was certainly a very emotionally charged video. I don't say that in an over-the-top way, in a hyperbole way, like, oh, I'm so... No, nothing like that. But it made me feel sad. And we have feelings for a reason, so I must have liked the guy. So yeah, I just wanted to give him a shout out. Once again, I am able to make these videos, so I wouldn't want to talk about anything else. Now we are at the end. Please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen for more content. Again, just muck around with all the stuff down there and leave me a comment, etc. Let me know how you feel. Let me know if you think I'm full of it. It's totally fine. You're allowed your opinion. Otherwise, it's grillermind.com/Simon. You can Simon, get 10% off. If you want to come my watch-alongs, I'm definitely going to do an R-Truth watch-along. I don't know what it will be. Maybe the John Cena match. But patreon.com/Simon316. It's super cheap. It's only $5. But come join me. At least one video a week, but we try and do more. And we've got Undertaker versus Mankind King of the Ring. And we've got SummerSlam SummerSlam 2005, Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan. The community's really cool over there. So if you want to come and have some chilled content, please do. Otherwise, you know the deal. Simon Miller on Cameo, they're super cheap at the moment as well because I love doing those kind of personalized videos. Simon J. Miller on TikTok for all manner of things. My wrestling matches, my wrestling thoughts on football, why the flub not soccer, and of course pro wrestling tees and Big Cartel for merchandise. I now have to go get a plane because that's the world that I'm living in, but I want to get this done. Maybe I'll get a coffee first. Strange thing to tell you. I appreciate you, my friends. Go tell your heroes they are your heroes. And Goofy Wrestling for life. I probably wouldn't like Goofy Wrestling for life as much as I do without R-Truth. So my man, I thank you. It's Bald Idiot. We'll see you soon.